Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Chronicles. Today in the studio, I have not one but two guests, and I'm gonna start by introducing my guests. I have Leah, Nichole Smith, and then I have Carla, Alicia. Let's start with Leah. Leah, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell us a little bit about your background, and then what do you do for Satisfax? I should say both of you work for Satisfax. I should have said that in the first place.
Yeah. So, hey, everyone. My name is Leah Nichole Smith. I'm the Senior VP of Education and Performance for Apartment Ratings and Satisfax. I have been here going on 13 years, and my job really is to help support our client partners with education, help support the industry as well, and also try to stay one step ahead of renters. They're a tricky bunch, but we try to do the best that we can to help prepare management companies and the industry in general for what's to come, because I think that's really important when you're trying to map out those plans for success and set goals and things like that.
Carla?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm Carla. Hello. I joined the Satisfax team last year. In fact, I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary with them, but I'm a 27-year veteran of multifamily. I worked in so many different positions, from on-site to vendor supplier to operations and marketing and training and recruiting. And I'm just thrilled to be with Satisfax. What's really great is that I had an opportunity to use the products as an operator before I joined the team. So I really had bought into, how surveys, resident surveys, employee surveys could up an operator's game. And I'm just thrilled. I'm the director of client performance now with Satisfax Research. And I'm just thrilled to work with our clients to help them reach their goals and achieve really high satisfaction rates.
The first question goes to Leah, since she's the veteran here. So, Leah, why don't you tell us a little bit about the biannual online renter study, when and how it started, and how has it evolved over the years?
That's a great question. So the online renter study actually first rolled out in 2011, and it was positioned at that time to get a temperature check for renters. We started to see, and this was actually the year I started at Satisfax, they started to see that more renters were taking to online. Back in 2010 or so, they were starting their search, doing more research online. You started to see sort of decline in the usage of, I don't know if you remember those apartment books. I'm kind of aging myself right now, but all of the print material, you started to see less print materials being cited as, how did you find us? The sources. And it was more going towards online research. And so Satisfax at the time thought that was a great opportunity to hear from those renters that were starting to make the shift, make those moves happen. So the initial study in 2011 was called Getting Inside the Head of the Online Renter. That was the name of the study. And it was a collaboration between many management companies, suppliers in the industry. And it was a comprehensive study of the time of where renters were finding their information, what they wanted to see online. So knowing that this could not be a one and done. It just could not be a one and done thing, because the usage of online information kept getting stronger and stronger. The decision was made to do the study again in 2014. So 3 years later, did the study in 2014. And the shift in those 3 years was so dramatic. It was, we can't wait another 3 years. We just can't wait that long to get this information out to the industry. And so at that time, that's when the survey or the study kind of transitioned to a biennial study. So every odd year, the data is collected. And we collected the data between September and November of 2023. And so we'll do it again in 2025 and expect a lot more changes. And over the years, how the study has sort of evolved, back in 2011, I would say all the way up to 2017, we asked a lot of product heavy type of questions. What amenities do you want? What do you need in your apartment home? The type of community conveniences. I remember we had a question about zip cars. I don't know if you remember zip cars back in the day, but we had, questions that were of the moment. And so how the study has evolved in this year in particular, we took out all of those types of product heavy questions. We're just asking about technology. What do you expect when you research online? What are some of the things that management companies can do better at in terms of online information? And so the study this year is very much weighted in that digital information.
Yeah, a follow-up question here. How do you determine which questions to ask? Like, what are the criteria? How do you vet your questions? Because, obviously, you could virtually ask an unlimited number of questions. You could ask 100, 500, 1,000, but then you don't want to do that, right? So you want to limit yourself. By the way, how many questions are you asking in a biannual survey? What's the total number of questions that you're asking them?
Total number of questions, Carla, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there are about 40 questions on the survey that we asked this year.
Yeah, about that. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about how you vet those questions. How do you determine which 40 questions to ask?
So there's two things that we take into consideration. First is historical data. What do the trends look like? This is a question we've been asking since 2011, and the needle hasn't moved. For example, zip cars, or it's no longer a thing, in the industry or for our renters. We know that this is not a question that is compelling enough to create change for the industry. So that's sort of where we start to clean up the survey. And then we also look at online chatter. What are our industry groups talking about? What are our client partners talking about when they're asking us questions? We read tons of articles, whether that's inside the industry, outside of the industry. We look at other surveys, other studies. There are some companies out there that are doing consumer-based studies about online behavior. And so it's really interesting to pull some of those questions, modify them for renters to see if their consumer brains operate the same as their renter brain. So that's been really interesting. And we do focus groups. We do focus groups with renters, just asking them about their opinions, what motivates them. So we try to pull, I know it sounds like we're just pulling from everywhere, but at the end of it all, to create a comprehensive study, you need multi-layers. You can't just ask, about reviews or just ask about amenities, so it really does need to be a comprehensive type of study that we do. And then we go back and forth. Carla and I can't tell you how long or how many meetings, how many sidebars we had whittling down the list. And what was really great about this year's study is it was Carla's first year. And so Carla came in with fresh eyes, right? She hasn't lived with this study as long as I have. So she was really able to be like, do we need that question? Or, I think we can get rid of this one. Or, I have 3 great questions that we need to ask. And to Carla's credit, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit later, but Carla had some great suggestions, question changes for fee transparency, perception versus reality, things that we have never asked before. So this study, this current round, there's a lot of benchmarking questions. You know, it's the first year we've asked them. We've kind of set the benchmark, and it's going to be really interesting in 2 years to kind of see, you know, what happens with renters in those areas.
So let's go to Carla. And Carla, would you like to share your first year satisfacts and your first year through the lens of this particular project, right? The biannual online renter study. Like, what was that you found over there? What were your contributions? Of course, Leah mentioned some of them, but from your perspective, just share your experience with us, and where are we? Like, how are we? How did you get to today, right?
Yeah.
How did the process change while you were there?
Well, I don't know how it changed, but as far as the process of putting together the survey, but I came into this position coming off of, being in operations and being in operations at a pretty high level. And I administered the reputation management programs, the survey programs for many communities across the nation. So I had a lot of that first party, zero party data, that experience in dealing with the site teams, dealing with resident feedback. And I had seen this report and read this report every other year that it came out as a client. And it was helping me to inform, my policies, my procedures, my strategies around reputation management. So when I had the opportunity this year to be a part of it and to contribute to it, there were some questions that I absolutely knew I wanted to know what was the data around it. Because intuition, instinctly, I felt that this was important. Fee transparency was absolutely one of them. In our industry, because of our systems, I don't think this is malicious. I don't think it's intention. Because of the way our systems are built and our accounting is built, we're advertising a rent that isn't the all-in monthly cost. And that to me as a marketer is a problem. If you're advertising a product at one rate and you come to the store and the product's $100, $200, $300 more than you're advertising, as a marketer, I feel like I'm throwing my money away. I am getting bad leads because they can't afford my product. And that throws off all of your marketing analytics. And so that's always been a hot topic for me. I've always wanted to see the industry gravitate towards advertising the all-in monthly cost so that consumers can compare apples to apples. But was that just me, or did consumers feel the same way? Right around the time Leah and I were, having these conversations about what questions should be on the study this time around, so did the administration start talking, our government start talking about fee transparency in rental housing. So it just felt very timely to add that question. So that was one question that was very important to me. The other situation that happened is I'm actually a student. I'm in a master's program and I get to collaborate with my classmates quite often. We have a lot of group projects and it is around market research and analytics. That's the course of study. And so we're talking about the industry. I'm sharing some of my experience and I'm hearing my classmates telling me, oh yeah, we don't even pay attention to the positive reviews anymore. We're only looking at the negative. There's so much stuff out there that doesn't really match, the experience. So I'm hearing my classmates share this. I'm like, we need to find out if this is just an isolated group of individuals that feel this way, or if renters in general are feeling this way. And that is where the negative, did you filter for negative reviews question came, and the reality versus perception question came. So I really, and then seeing the data, which I can't wait to talk about those, it was very eye-opening. I didn't expect the numbers to be as high as they were. And I'm excited to be able to talk about that with the industry and have these conversations in more detail.
Before I go to the next question, I do wanted to say, if I point a question at one of you and you feel like the other one is more, I guess, prepared or has better information, better insights to answer, by all means, just defer to them. the point is not to put anyone on a spot, but to get the best information out of there. So with me not knowing which one is like more better, I guess, suited to respond, feel free to just kind of point out to the other person and let them respond by all means. So the next question is for Leah. What are the main sources that renters are using in their search for new homes nowadays?
Yeah, so I think this is a really good historical data type of question because it's one of those that we've asked since 2011. Number one is always going to be your ILSs, right? You're having that sort of opportunity as a renter for a one-stop shop. They can go to one place, look at a bunch of different communities, and kind of start narrowing down, what they feel, which communities they feel like have what they're looking for. So that's always been a top source. We've seen over the years some changes when it comes to getting information from the community's website, doing a generic sort of Google search, if you will. Those kind of ebb and flow depending on the years. What has been a steady upward trend, however, has been online ratings and reviews. Now, the interesting thing about that is in the past, renters used to use reviews sort of like as a deciding factor, pieces of information to help them say yes or no. We're starting to see more now that ratings and reviews are top of funnel. They're incorporating the ratings and reviews before moving forward. So very similar to an ILS, they feel like the ratings and reviews are that one-stop shop. I can find out information about multiple communities. I can take my list from 10 down to 5 prior to making, any kind of contact or moving forward in my renting journey. So top 3 for this year, we have ILSs, we have apartment and management company websites, and we have ratings and reviews.
Mm-hmm.
The next question, I'm going to Carla. Carla, social media, cited by nearly 25% of renters, represents the highest percentage in the study's 12-year history. Where is the opportunity for marketers right here?
Yeah. So that is interesting. We started in 2011 and about 14% of renters were using social media in their search. And now we're up to 24. So it's still considerably less than ILSs and websites and ratings and reviews, but it's growing and it's growing pretty fast. What we like to say at Satisfax, and I wholly, truly believe this as well when I was in operations, is that your social media should be a place for any content that's not already available. So for example, your specials, they're already on your website. They're being fed to your ILSs. That's not, social media is not necessarily the best place to put a special. Why? Well, because social media has 2 audiences. The audience is your residents who are following your social media for specific reasons like events and community updates. And then it has prospects who are using your social media as research to find out more about life at the community. So if you're posting your specials on social media, you're telling your residents, your existing residents, that the new people moving in are getting a specific rate and a discount that you're not giving them. It's not a good, warm, fuzzy feeling. So social media should be for all of those additional opportunities for promotion. When you have an event, you've taken photos, you share those photos. When someone new moves in, you take pictures of their, move in, giving them the keys. It's a big, exciting, happy day. When you are changing out the colors with the seasons in your landscaping, you take pictures of your maintenance team, cleaning the pool, use it as an opportunity to build that sense of community, to introduce your team members, how hard they work, and all the energy that goes into keeping that community operating and creating that experience, that wonderful living experience for your residents. So I think that when prospects see that and they go to your social media, They've already seen your ILSs. They know what your prices are, what your availability is, what your specials are. They've read your reviews. They know the good, the bad, the ugly. Now they get to go to your social media and they get to see what it's like to live there. Make that attractive. And I think that when communities start to create that type of content, which we're starting to see more and more, you're going to see that percentage go up even higher in the next survey.
You said a keyword for me, and that's content. In outside of the multifamily world, right? In a world in general, content has become king. It's taking over the world because good content, right? Great content uh, brings attention. Attention brings sales. You can't really sell to anyone unless you get their attention first. So content is gonna be, it is the present, and I think is gonna be the future for the time being, for a long time, for people to get their attention.
Mm-hmm.
And how are we as an industry do better with content? Honestly, my personal experience, right? I don't go so much on properties websites, on their social media accounts, but based on strictly what I'm seeing on LinkedIn, the cookie cutter approach of all management companies, it's kind of how would I say, disappointing, to say the least. Basically everything that shows in my feed is kind of like the same colors. Everything blends in so badly that I can't, unless I really stop to look at a logo, everything kind of looks the same to my eye. And that's not a compliment, right? If that's the type of marketing that's being done on a platform like LinkedIn, I wonder what is it different at a site level? Do you see like any different, any more in-depth, any more like targeted marketing towards more like real life situations? Let's just say something as basic as taking a video with your phone, literally, and just post it, like posting the raw video. And there's marketers out there, they're saying literally that taking a video with their phone gets more attention than like a super edited video.
Mm-hmm.
I know I said a lot of things right here, but hopefully I'm making sense, right? I'm not going on uh, on a rant out here, but honestly, is it room to improve for marketers? I'm talking about on a property management side, right? Is it room to improve? Can we do better as far as content, like creating content and creating unique content, not like, again, not like a cookie cutter that's like something that corporate producers with a help of their marketing department, and everybody's like using the same boring videos or canvas.
Yeah. I think that there is a situation for different types of content, right? If you're running an expensive ad campaign, that ad campaign does need to be buttoned up a little bit. But if you're creating organic content, and that's the content that you're posting on your news feeds, you're not necessarily putting dollars behind it. That's the content that consumers are going to consume when they're researching what it's like to live at your community. They're going to go to your page and they're going to scroll through your posts and they're going to see what's going on. I think, yeah, that content can be very organic. It can be very authentic. In fact, if you do create content that is more buttoned up and polished and professionally produced, it almost creates an air of distrust. Like, what are they trying to hide? So, we're having this conversation right now as operators, how much, authority, how much responsibility and how much empowerment do we give to our on-site teams to create content? And how do we encourage that? How do we train that? How do we support them? And again, I think we're getting further and further into 2024, 2025. We've got millennials working on site. We've got Zennials starting to work on site. They are digital natives. They create content all day. So let them do their thing. Let them show their personalities. Let them be them. That's where I stand. Leah, what do you have to add to that? Because I know you have some opinions about this.
Well, I mean, I agree with what everybody's saying here, like for sure. I was asked at a conference once, like, how do we get our residents more engaged with social media? They don't follow us. They don't pay attention, that kind of stuff. And so the advice I always give is think about the brands you love on social media. You as a consumer, the brands that you follow, the posts that you like, the things that you comment, what does that content look like? And how can it be translated to our industry? I think another suggestion that I made is, and sometimes people look at me like I'm crazy, but why don't you let your residents take over your social media for a day? Give them 24 hours on your social media, give them a checklist, 5 things. We need you to take over our social media today. Here are 5 things to post, and here we need you to post at 12, 2, 6, and whatever. And you make a big deal about it the week leading up to this renter takeover, right? And you let your resident have at it. Again, to Carla's point, there's no better content than the content that is organically created outside of our marketing bubble. There's always going to be a need for the buttoned up, very strategic type of content. But I think there's room to allow your residents to have a voice. Mm-hmm. And even if that's, a photo contest, we've seen that. There's management companies that do great things with resident photo contests or video contests. You can really involve your residents in a way that other prospects are going to be, I want to be that resident. Ooh, I would, if I could take over social media at that community, this is what I would do. And so you allow other people to participate, which draws more people in. So that's kind of one of the suggestions that I always throw out. I haven't seen anybody do it yet. I think there's some that might be a little bit afraid of it, but you've seen it on social media with other brands where they allow their customers to take over their social media. Why can't we do that?
Leah, I think the closest I've seen to that is where a pet at a community, took over social media, where it's the community through the pet's perspective. But I love that idea about through a resident perspective. And there are actual mechanisms within social accounts. I know specifically Instagram, where you can actually share that access temporarily with another user. So it really makes it easy.
And if you're, if it's something that you're still hesitant about, you could have the resident email you, the videos or the photos or, share their links to their folders where you can still have some control over the content, but allowing that content to be created by an actual resident at your community, you have no idea the social currency, that you could rack up with prospects who are potentially considering your community.
Mm-hmm. Leah, I'm glad that you mentioned branding, right? And I just remember a recent post on LinkedIn. Someone posted saying that people were asked if they could name hotel brands, and the average person was able to name between 1 and 3 brands. When they were asked to name multifamily brands, the average number was, could you guess a number? 0.
1 or 0?
Zero. It's 0.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem goes, goes way deeper, right? Multifamily operators are not having very well defined brands as a whole, right? And then if that goes at the corporate level, as the company level, then you can't really expect miracles at the site level. I think that you will see exceptions when someone does like a really exceptional, a great marketer that's also a property manager takes over and says like, this is my baby, I own this thing, I'm gonna make this shine, right? And they're making it shine. You'll see remarkable activities out there. But outside of that, as far as initiatives, we don't have well-defined brands. Like multifamily has 0 brands, which is, kind of a sad thing to say, but it's a reality. Like, and I'm not saying it, it's based on, feedback that people that were asked, right, in this survey. I'm not sure how scientific it is, but your guess was, right on the money. You said 0 to 1. So you're of the same opinion, right? So going to that, what can companies, like, is there any value in branding, right? Is there any value in branding, first of all? And then if you think that there's value in branding, what can companies do to actually make their brands being known, stick to people's, minds, to their potential customers?
Yeah, so I know Carla has a very strong opinion too, or thoughts about this one. So I'll answer first and I'll turn it over to Carla.
Definitely.
I think the challenge for us in multifamily is that some portfolios, majority are regionally based. We don't have sort of like a nationwide, reach where you could ask someone in Connecticut and they could name a brand that also exists in California. So there's a little bit of a challenge there in terms of, we're not Coke, we're not, Microsoft, we're not Google, but where the opportunity, I believe, for branding is for multifamily is becoming that household name within your market. Like really, if all of our communities are in the Southeast, we want to be top of mind in the Southeast, right? There is that opportunity for that. I do feel, and this is a question that we actually ask in the online renter study, we do ask, do you consider the brand? Do you consider the company, when you're looking for an apartment? We've been asking this question since 2011, never moved the needle. Renters are not focused on the management company's brand. Couple of things that we can do to better that is to make sure that renters, if you do have sister communities, you do have a larger portfolio, allowing for things like no fee transfers. You can move to one of our sister communities without incurring a transfer fee. Making it easy for people to stay within your brand. If that is how your portfolio is set up. And it's also an opportunity, knowing that renters aren't necessarily considering a brand, is to define that community's personality, that community's, brand message. A lot of times we try to take the corporate brand message and make it fit for all of the communities within the portfolio. And that doesn't necessarily work. And Carla, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we ask that question. Do you consider management company's brand when making a decision? And as Leah said, since we started asking that question, the percentage of residents who say yes has been around the 20%, 22, 23%. So not very high, right? And again, to Leah's point, that's because brands in property management can be very regional. And it's also, our transaction. We're not going out to eat every day. We don't stay at multiple hotels. We stay at multiple hotels every, couple of months or so. In multifamily, you're renting maybe once every, hopefully 18 months or so, maybe a little longer. So you don't have an opportunity to interact as often with those brands. However, there are a couple of exceptions. One is that when your rents start to climb above $2,000 a month. When your rents start to go up, brand matters more. And it's because you have to identify and connect with that consumer, that high earner consumer, at a much more personal level. That brand needs to speak to their lifestyle, to their demographics. Then there are some areas regionally also where brand matters. And again, I think that's when you have a concentration of communities in one location, right? So if you're driving down the street and you see, I'm just going to make up a name here. Let's just call it, the Golden Towers. Horrible name. Wouldn't recommend it, but first thing that popped up. And then you're in another part of town and you see Golden Towers West, and then you're in another part of town and you see Golden Towers East. Then what you start to get is, brand recognition because you are regional. So that is a positive. I think the other positive to branding is more on the operations side. There is a benefit to having a very robust, well-developed brand guideline that does create personality, tone of voice, creates the aesthetic that the brand should look like, and has all of that information available for site teams to use when they're creating their content. And it does streamline if you're an operator that's, purchasing heavily on acquisitions, it streamlines that execution of new projects. It definitely reduces some of the costs. So there is a benefit there. Now there's a problem also. If you're an operator that isn't listening to customer feedback, isn't adjusting to meet customer and renter expectations, and you have renters that have a bad experience with a well-branded portfolio, you've doomed the entire portfolio. So it's really important that if you want to see the benefits from branding a larger portfolio and not just one community at a time, that you really have your customer service game dialed in and that you're really focusing on that customer experience.
Yeah, I see there's no different than any brands. They're not multifamily, right? Walmart, they have the same challenge, right? If something like really negative happens at one store, it could affect the brand as a whole. It doesn't mean that, they're not trying to push the brand. So I want to look at opportunities versus, challenges, why companies shouldn't pursue a branding campaign, like to build a very strong brand. I think that there's more opportunity than just challenges, right? Or perceived challenges, especially when there's only like 1 out of 5 renters that are making decisions based on brand, right? You have 4 out of 5 people right there. It's 80%. That's huge, right? If you could turn that 80% into aware public, imagine how powerful that would be. Imagine, like, you start, like, anybody that's building brand today in 2023, it's crazy that I even say that everybody that's building brand in 2023, it's ahead of the game, right? In a world where, like, brands have been known, like, and brand building has been a thing for decades. In 2023, in multifamily, if you're doing a conscientious, I guess, campaign, like if a very intentional campaign in building a brand, you could be ahead of the game. Like, you could be the very first company to be known as a brand in the world, which is amazing to me. Like, that's an amazing opportunity still, an opportunity that's not being taken advantage of.
There are some companies I think that did a good job at that in the past. Archstone is one of them that I can remember. I don't think are they still around, Leah?
I don't think they are.
No, but when they were in their heights, I think this was in the early 2000s. You would drive around Southern California and you knew that was an Archstone building, from their signage to their flags to their aesthetics and their landscaping. It was very obvious, and it was a brand. And I think that there have been some REITs that have gone down that brands, I don't want to say bandwagon, but have experimented with branding. But what we're seeing, I think now, is just more operators in all different types of portfolio mixes experimenting with branding. And I think it's exciting. I love to see all of the new brands, community brands that are really focused on that customer experience and connecting with their audience. I love to see that.
Yeah, Carla, to that point, I think one of the things, if management companies can get right, is developing a full digital ecosystem, like taking that brand and making it consistent online, the experience, from your employees. I mean, we don't necessarily focus on a full ecosystem when it comes to branding. We have the names. Everyone has the same, kind of names inside the portfolio, and we feel like that makes a brand. But if you go online, or if you read responses to reviews, or if you see their surveys, it's like that. The entire brand needs to be infused throughout that whole portfolio's digital ecosystem. So that's, from customer service, the branding online, what's being said about your the resident's experience. And so I think there are some, Adrian, to your point, those that are making intentional decisions when it comes to branding and focus on creating that comprehensive digital ecosystem are going to be well ahead of the game than any other management companies. And the potential is definitely out there to be, a household name when it comes to multifamily management.
Yeah, one brand name that stuck with me over the years was Post Properties. Of course, they're not around anymore, but to me, they were the standard, the golden standard of property management, the way everything's been done. And I know individuals that are still on the market, like still active, that used to work for Post Properties. They're taking with them like the things that they've learned back when they work for Post, and they're the best things that I ever seen. Like a lot of common sense solutions, a lot of common sense practices, SOPs, and they're leading other, fairly large multifamily companies as we speak. But they took that Post experience with them over the years, and this is how Post, in my mind, lives through the years, even though the brand has disappeared. They got purchased by MAA, right? And they just disappeared as a brand. But still, in my mind, up to this day, Post is kind of like the golden standard. So they've done something unique that hasn't been done before and since in property management, to my knowledge, right? To my knowledge, at various degrees, other companies have tried, but in my opinion, I haven't seen one that came at the same level as Post. Customer service, branding, consistency, you name it, it was there with Post. So the next question I have, and this goes to you, Leah. Which of the elements of an online review are being rated by the survey takers as the most helpful?
So this is a brand new question. We'd never had this question before. We gave renters 10 elements of an online review, and we asked them, to rank from most important or most helpful, kind of all the way down. And so this was really an opportunity for us to just make a defined statement regarding review quality. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of these reviews is not to talk about how perfect your community is, but to educate your renter as to why they should choose you versus choose a competitor. Number one, over 80% of renters said the most helpful element of a review itself. Carla, want to give us a drum roll? So 80% is the content of the review, the actual content. What do these reviews have to say? It's the body of the review. Number two, over 70% said that the most helpful element is to know that the review came from a verified resident. Trust, authenticity, we saw this running theme throughout the entire study itself. And so I think as consumers, I've been one, I'm sure many people who are listening have been a consumer as well, where you order something because the reviews told you to. I'm ordering it. Enough people said that this is a great t-shirt or great restaurant or whatever. And when you actually are on the receiving end of it, you open the box or you have the plate sit down in front of you at the restaurant, you are highly disappointed. And so as consumers being sort of let down over and over again, renters are looking for trust. So over 70% want to know that this review came from a verified resident. So out of all of those 10 elements that we gave, the one that ranked the least helpful, all the way down at number 10, about 20%, is that the fact that the review was rated 5 stars. Renters are moving away from the star rating. We saw this years ago when renters told us that they didn't care about the would recommend percent. I don't know if you remember, Adrian, but in reviews, it used to say, would you recommend this community? You have a thumbs up or you have, 100%. Exactly. Renters started to tell us way back in 2013, they do not care about the would recommend percent. And if you notice on Google, apartment ratings, other websites, that metric is no longer facing the public, right? It's no longer there because people don't care about it. Renters are moving in that same direction when it comes to the star rating. Now, if Google ever decides that the star rating is no longer important in their algorithm, this entire industry is going to just lose their minds. They're not going to know what to do because so much emphasis has been placed, whether it's ownership groups, corporate marketing, you name it, bonuses, live and die by the star rating, when at the end of the day, your renters are saying, I could care less. Yeah. If it's, I don't even pay attention. I want to know what this person has actually experienced. So pretty interesting.
Yeah,
extremely interesting. There's another number that caught my attention, in your report, and that number is 70% of renters admitted to intentionally looking for negative reviews during the most recent apartment search, and this goes like along the lines of what you just explained, right? What signal is this trend sending to property management company? Carla, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah. So this was the question we asked because of those classmates that were telling me that they don't trust what they're reading anymore. In operations, we've been trying to optimize our online reviews for many reasons, one of them being because it helps with our search engine optimization. Another one is because we wanted to be highly rated. But the thing is, we can't all be 5-star communities, right? Because with a 5-star community comes a really heavy expectation of service, right? I'm moving into a 5-star community. I have 5-star expectations. And when those expectations are not met, because maybe we, did some things to increase our positive reviews online that weren't necessarily natural or authentic or organic, right? Maybe we did a raffle, or maybe we're using certain technology that, hides all that negative feedback from being seen online. Whatever it is, if we can't live up to that online reputation, we're just setting up our on-site teams for failure. And we're setting up our residents to have what we like to call renter remorse. And that's going to lead to lower renewal rates. So you're not going to win financially. You're going to have higher employee turnover, higher resident turnover. And what do you have at the end of the day? A 5-star rating that consumers don't trust. In fact, that's another question we ask on the survey. We say, would you trust a rating review site if most or all of the reviews were positive? And overwhelmingly, prospects are saying, no, I'm not going to trust that. So what we're really trying to convey with the question of consumers, 70% of consumers filter for and read negative reviews, and the trust question is that it's more important to be authentic, for the online reviews and your star rating to share real stories. And then where you shine is in your responses, because prospects aren't dumb. They know if somebody wrote a 1-star review and they're angry because they owe you $1,000, there's probably a reason why they owe you $1,000, right? And what they want to see is, how did you respond to that? And what I like to tell our clients is, when you're thinking about your response game, one, you're writing the response for 2 audiences. Yes, you're writing the response for the person who posted the review, but more importantly, you're writing the response for the people reading the review, and that is your prospects. So what you want to do is inform and educate. The situation where there's a balance left on a move out could be, here's our policy. We try to make sure we communicate. Your itemized billing statement should have photos. We're happy to review it. But what we're seeing, right, in responses are templates or AI, God forbid, right? And that then leaves a negative impression. So thinking about 70% of prospects reading negative reviews, you could have a 1-star review with horrible details, a fabulous response that actually leaves a positive impression on your prospect. That is where we need to get in operations. We need to see all that feedback as an opportunity to shine online with our response management strategy.
The next question is around the percentage of apartment communities they're asking for reviews in 2023. I've learned that the best way to probably trigger a response is to ask for that response. So how do you get a review? Ask for it, right? And I've learned this over the years. It was even when I was a maintenance technician, my managers will tell me, like, look, when you run into a resident and you see that they're satisfied with work, ask them for a review. They even gave us cars, like little cars. They had the www on them, right? That they could actually take. They took the resident straight to the website and to the place where they should leave the review. So, Leah, this is a question for you. What percentage of the apartment communities are asking for reviews in 2023, and where is the opportunity here?
Yeah, so the question that we asked in the study was, if asked by your management company, would you be willing to write a positive review about your experience? This is a question that we have been asking since 2015, I believe. Just trying to see, is there potential out there? Is there that low-hanging fruit? Is there the opportunity to your point, just ask, would your residents be engaged? Over 60% of the residents the renters that we surveyed said, you know what? If they asked me, I would absolutely write a positive review about my experience. Okay, so we took those renters out, the ones that said, yes, I am willing to do it if they ask me. And we then asked just that group, have you ever been asked? You're telling us that you would do it, but have you ever been asked? Only about 30% have ever been asked to write a review. There's so much potential there. And here's the thing. Our teams already know how to do it. Leasing associates, they go through training to ask for the deposit, ask for the commitment when someone comes to tour a home. They already know the steps. All they're doing is switching up the words. That's it. Instead of asking if they want to lease, do you want to hold the apartment? Does this look like a place you want to live? All those little training tips that they're given, exact same process, just asking for the review. When I worked on site, and this was before online reviews became so important, we would get thank yous all day, every day. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for fixing my water heater. Thank you so much for, the answer my question, or you guys are so great. We would get reviews in verbal form all day long. And I do believe that's still happening on site. The teams are still getting reviewed verbally. Now we just need to take it one little step further and have those experiences put online for the world to see. And I kind of feel like, as an industry, when you're asking for reviews, we just want the positive stuff. That's it. I just, I don't want to ask anyone who might give us what I call a U-turn inside of the review. I love living here, but I wish parking was better. They don't want that U-turn. They just want, I love living here. Boom, that's it. And so, to Carla's point, they seek out technology that only allows that type of information to make it through. But with that 70% that we saw that actively filter for the negative, Renters tell us, I already know why I want to live here. I've seen your ILSs. It's in my budget. I know what your photos look like. I've, checked out your social media. The reviews tell me if I shouldn't live here. And so if someone's complaining about parking in a review, but I don't drive, that's not really a negative review for me. If someone's complaining about there's, kids that are loud on the weekend and I have kids, might not be a negative for me. So I think as an industry, we need to give renters more credit, because as consumers, we are smart, we're discerning, we do our homework, we recognize when things don't look kosher. It's like, this doesn't look, this is too good to be true. But we don't give the same credit to our renters. And so all of that to say, there are residents who are willing to tell their stories, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask, even if those stories have a little bit of a negative sprinkle in there. They could love everything, but they just don't like the parking. That might not be a deal breaker for a lot of people.
You're right. Saying that means that, I love this community, and my percentage of loving it is like 90%, is not 100%. I mean, who can honestly look in a mirror and say I'm 100% type of person? No one. Like, if you're just honest with yourself and you have self-awareness, you're gonna know that you have a lot of flaws. Like, you're not a perfect person, right? There's so many negatives about you. So if someone rates a community at 90% or 85%, to me that's awesome. Like, you should take it, right? You should take it. Like, take it
Absolutely.
around with it. Like, this is such a huge compliment, right?
And you get a better resident match as well, right? Because the residents moving in knowing what it's like, knowing really what it's like. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they still choose you. So you get a resident who's going to move in with higher, realistic expectations, and therefore you have an opportunity to, increase their satisfaction.
I absolutely love this line, Carla, because I'm a strong believer in people, consumers, customers, clients, even job candidates. They have to make educated decisions. By you withholding information or like trying to put lipstick on a pig, you're doing nothing but just creating a huge opportunity to disappoint them. And then at the end of the day, nobody wins, right? They don't win, obviously. They're going to feel like they've been cheated in signing a lease, right? Not knowing all the facts. And it doesn't benefit you either, because they're going to be an unhappy resident. They're going to get the word that, you're a dishonest property management company. Management is not transparent. They don't, they don't disclose information like they should. And the negative effect could have a ripple effect on your business, way more than just transparent. Like, on the other hand, being transparent and just them, like you said, knowing what to expect. The next question that I have, and this goes to you, Carla. The resident feedback has been delivered via survey, right? You received the survey as a property management company. Now what? How are the management companies rated in your study? If there's a rating out there based on how they respond, how do residents rate management companies as far as the response time, the accuracy, the taking care of the issues, right? Because it's not just responding. Let's just say someone says, I have a leak in the ceiling. It's been going on for a month. I called it in. And then just responding, saying, we're sorry that you have this issue, like that still doesn't resolve the issue. There's a piece right there, the action, taking action that needs to take place. So it's not just simply saying, we acknowledge your issue, we're sorry about that, we're going to take care of it, but how are we taking care of it, and how fast, right? And what good of a service do we provide in reaction to that feedback that we received? So what are the numbers saying? What's the story out there?
Yeah. So when we're talking about internal surveys, if you get a survey back and a resident is bringing to your attention that there's something that they're dissatisfied with that needs attention, that needs your attention, we know that renters expect a response within 1 to 2 days. And I'm not talking about 1 to 2 business days. I'm just talking about 1 to 2 days. And the same holds true with online reviews. When renters are reading those online reviews, and Leah had told you earlier that the most important element of an online review is the details. The second is that it's verified. The third one that she didn't mention, and I'm going to mention it now, is that there is a response to that review. So they're looking at that response and they're looking at the timing. So if you have an online review that was posted 3 months ago and all of a sudden a response pops in 3 months later, what you're leaving that prospect with is the perception that if they have an issue in real life, IRL for my Zennials and my millennials, then it's going to take a couple of months for me to get it resolved. Where if instead they see that response right away, the same day, next day, or within that 2-day time frame, they're making that connection that when I move in and I have an issue, I'm going to hear from management right away. So 2 days maximum, that should be the time frame that we are trying to respond, not just to online reviews and surveys, but anytime a resident approaches you with a need, we want to make sure that we're communicating with them in that timely manner.
Yeah, and here's the thing about responses. Remember in the very beginning, we talked about how reviews are being used at top of funnel now. So renters are making assumptions about the management company based on the information that they're finding online. And so they haven't met you yet. They haven't called. They haven't gotten an email. There's been no contact, no interaction with an on-site team. And so they really, truly believe that how you're responding to your reviews is how you treat your residents in real life. Mm-hmm. And so let's think about where these responses are coming from. If the responses are coming from the corporate office, if they're templated responses, if they are, just sort of boilerplate type of responses, if they're late in responding, they're outside of that 1 to 2 day time frame, all of that feeds into a negative perception of the people that are supposed to be taking care of them if they choose that community. So there's a major opportunity when it comes to responding, whether that's your reviews, whether that's your surveys. And we've seen online reviews where renters will say, I took a survey, or I told them that this wasn't taken care of in my survey, and it's still not taken care of. So whether that's you think that this survey feedback is going to stay internal inside of your bubble, that's not necessarily the case. Our kind of one of the things that we say here is what happens on site ends up online. And so if that negative experience, if that lack of responsiveness, if that sort of like perception that the management company could care less, that's what's going to be what your renters are going to see when they're looking at your community and trying to decide if they should move forward in consideration. I think there's a big opportunity for responding to your surveys, responding to your reviews, and all of that feeds into the perception that you care, that you really do care about your residents. It's not just lip service. And Adrian, I loved you pointed out the lipstick on a pig. We say that around here quite often. So yeah, all of that is super important when your renter, your future renter, hasn't met you yet. How are they being introduced to your brand, to your community, to your level of customer service? The way that that introduction is being made by all the information that they find online.
This was an amazing conversation. We're getting close to wrapping up right here. So I want to go to Carla, and Carla, I want to give you the opportunity to share some final thoughts. Maybe they're your biggest takeaways from this online renter study, or maybe it's something else that's not related to that. But any closing thoughts for the audience?
So I think that there was one question that we didn't quite touch on that I want to share, and that was the perception versus reality. And I think this really kind of drives home where some of that distrust in our prospects is coming from. So we asked the question, I think it was something along the lines of, did the positive online reviews that you read when researching your current apartment match the experience you had after you moved in? And it's about 1 in 4, between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5. I think it's 22% of residents said no, it did not. And I think that really drives home this, authenticity message, where what renters really want is to read online reviews that are authentic. And that doesn't always mean it's going to be positive. It doesn't mean it's always going to be a 5-star. But if those stories are detailed and those responses that you post convey your commitment to customer service, you're still going to see an impact on your closing ratios and on the quality of the lead that comes in, because they're coming in with those realistic expectations. So I think that's just, one I wanted to get out there and make sure that we're all aware of. And then, of course, we kind of talked about it earlier, that that question about fee transparency. And it was, roughly 80% of renters want more fee transparency. And this isn't about after they've called you and had conversations with your leasing agents. I mean, that's important that, they need to know what they're signing up for before they sign on the dotted line. This is during their shopping experience, during their search experience. It's very frustrating for them to have to try to make an informed decision when they don't have all of the details. So as an industry, how can we move the needle there and create more transparency for our renters?
Carla, what are some best ways for the audience to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. So Carla J. Alicia. I love connecting with individuals and chit-chatting about opinions and experiences. And that's always probably the best way to make a connection professionally.
Going to Leah now. Leah, what are some big takeaways from the renter survey, or just final thoughts that might not be related to the survey? Just wrapping up the conversation. What's your wrap up?
Yeah, so after doing the survey for over 10 years, I think this is the year for me, after going through the data, where I started to realize, and you could see it in numbers, that the consumer behavior is the same for the renting behavior. So how people pick a t-shirt, and I know this sounds so like elementary, but how they would shop for a t-shirt, a new restaurant to try, the next car they're going to buy, that sort of behavior, that consumer journey is very similar to what your renters are doing. So to that point, I think marketers in our industry, you already have the answers to the test. Think about yourself as a consumer. What makes you say yes to a product? What makes you say no to a product, right? What would push you away and, oh no, they're not getting my money? Use that same brain, that same behavior when you're mapping out marketing strategies for your apartment communities, because that's where your renters are when they're looking for a home. It's never been more clear than with this year's study that consumer behavior and renting, the rental search behavior is very similar. And so I think that's my major takeaway for the study. And it gives you a lot to work with when you're marketing your communities. So yeah, I loved this year. I felt when we got the study, and again, after doing this for 10 years and really modernizing the survey this year, when we got the data, I was like, oh, I need to take PTO. I need to spend 72 hours straight just with this data and with the study. There's so much good stuff in there, but there's a lot of really significant takeaways, but for me, it was think of yourself as, you know, in the position to buy your next fill in the blank. How would you go about it? What would make you say yes? What would make you say no? And apply those same principles to marketing our communities.
I'll just do one plug on top of what Leah said. It is such a great study. We make it free to the industry. It's a free download on the Satisfax website. You go to education and resources, and you can go in there and download it. And Leah does a section in the study where she makes bold predictions for 2025. And she has a track record of kind of getting it all right. And she's made some really bold predictions in this study. And I absolutely think you should check that out.
Thank you, Carla.
Are we gonna say you're putting the ball in my court, and you're making me curious too, Leah? Do you want to say about your predictions for 2025?
Well, there's 6 of them in there. 5 actually came from my Apartmentalized session. So it was really nice to see that the data supported what I said back in June, which was great. It's like, okay, I'm still on the right track. I'm still okay. If I had to pick one that was sort of like the aha, and it still continues to be strong, is that by the year 2025, renters are going to be in a very solid place for home ownership. We know 2023 with interest rates kind of priced a lot of people out. 2024 hasn't gotten, is predicted to not be a whole lot better, but predictions from Fannie Mae that it's going to start opening up around 2025. So think about all these people right now who have wanted to own a home. They're saving their money. They're watching the markets. They're watching interest rates. They may not be living the best experience based, as Carla's point, perception versus reality, but it is what it is. I'm stuck here now. And when that opportunity opens up for them, if we're not doing everything we could possibly be doing right now to lock our residents in, being upfront, being caring, transparent, creating that sense of community, giving them reasons why they can't imagine living anywhere else, there are going to be renters who will leave us in 2025, for sure. They now have this opportunity to own, but there are also some that may talk themselves out of that next move based on the experience that they've had. So I do kind of feel like we should be strategizing on retention right now. Retention should be the name of the game for management companies in 2024. You got to lock your residents in. You don't want to give them an opportunity, an excuse, a reason to say, I'm out. Because for those that are financially in the position to do so in 2025, it's going to be a hard sell to keep them.
We want to close the back door in 2024.
Yes. I like that, Carla.
The first step to close the back door is to close the back door on your employees. If you're gonna be bleeding employees like we were for the years, the turnover rates at a site level are 70-80%. You're not gonna see them in ANA reports. You're not gonna see them anywhere. But when you have honest conversations one-on-one with leaders of the industry, they will tell you that those are the real rates. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's exceptions from that, right? Some companies are doing better than others, but we as an industry as a whole, we're experiencing right there employee turnover rate 70-80%. When you can establish legacy knowledge, when you can establish some relationships between your employees and your residents, because your employees are not there long enough to build any relationships, everything's out the window, right? So start with your employees and then build that tenure with the employees. That's gonna help you build your tenure with your residents. Are we in agreement here?
100%. And Adrian, that is actually in the prediction about closing the door with your employees to prevent, they need to have those experiences that will make them so compelled to stay, but it can't happen without your employees having an experience that makes them want to stay. So yeah, it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
So operators, retention. This is the word. If I had to pick one word from this conversation, this is it for 2024, 2025. Leah, Carla, thank you so much for being here today with me on Multifamily Chronicles. We went well over an hour, but it was an amazing conversation. I feel like we could have gone for another hour or two easily. Thank you, all of you that watched us today. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila, and I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.